Yeah, I have started the recording, so just drop them. Guys, I think everyone working on the front end side, right? So I'm giving you one scenario to you, and you guys have to explain me what scenario you can apply there. Let's suppose I'm taking one application that is Make My Trip, or any application you can take. Okay, so what I'm doing here, I'm trying to create the flight, create the flight ticket, right? So I'm trying to Mumbai, Delhi, and the search. Okay, I click on the search. Continue. So as part of this class, we are going to discuss how you can do the testing, how you can do the manually testing of the REST API. We have already discussed how you can map, right? So mapping is not, you have completed your task. Yeah, mapping is also very important thing. If you can't map the requirement, then you can't create the request. You can't connect with the server, right? So that's why mapping is very, very important as part of, the testing, right? After mapping is done, right, now it's your duty, you have to check the functionality, right? You have to also ensure that whatever the developer has implemented, right, that is working fine as per the requirement, right? So let's suppose developer has implemented the feature. I'm giving you the scenario and you guys tell me. So let's suppose this is the field, right? You have to do uh, the manual testing of this adults, right? The first name, last name, mail, and the country, mobile number, and email. So tell me how I can test this functionality, test this scenario. Let me open the notepad. You guys tell me how I can test this. Tell me. What are the scenario you can apply it here, and the types of the scenario you can apply here. If you give the answer of how you can do the manual testing of that, you will get the answer like how you can do the testing in the REST API. That's why uh,
First, first
mhm.
we'll check for the positive scenarios, like as per the government, that whatever the ID proves, the name is it's accepting or not.
Mhm. So first we are doing the positive scenario, right? So positive scenario. So as per the positive scenario, what scenario we can apply? Like the smoke testing, the high level of the smoke testing, right?
Yes,
High
sir.
level. Okay, the high level. In the high level, what we are doing, we are testing the critical functionality, the critical functionality, right? So how you can apply the first, we can try to understand the what are the types you have to do. Now second one, tell me the second, which type of testing you will do here.
The negative negative testing.
uh, Negative testing. Okay, let's do it negative as well. Negative scenario. Okay, negative
So
scenario.
we'll provide like not as per the government, this one, the approved ID card, like the
Mhm.
name. We won't be providing that. We'll be providing the different name, and we'll check whether it will accept or it will not. As per the requirement, it should not accept it.
Okay, so now the third one. What would be the third one?
Like formatting in like email, there should be at the rate.
Yeah, that comes under, I think, negative scenario, no? I believe.
The blank space, if you give, you should not accept.
Yeah, that we can consider in the
Under
negative.
negative, all the negatives.
Yeah, yeah, all
Country
the
code
negative.
should have, yeah, all means country where
Sorry,
the
come again.
service. So country code should be available for all countries where service is available. Right.
Yeah, we have to also check the. First, tell me the type of scenario. Which type of testing you will do here? What are the types of the testing you will
The
perform here?
positive smoke testing, then functional testing also will perform.
Yeah, functional testing we can also perform. Okay, yeah, that is, I think, at the top, I think, right?
Yes.
When you get the
No,
requirement in the bunches.
after the smoke testing, functional testing.
Yeah, means you can also do what happened in some time. They have implemented only first name and the name, and they have not implemented, let's suppose, this feature and the continue. So at that time, you can only do the functional testing, because you can't proceed further, right? So you can't continue, then you can't check the smoke testing. You can only test the functional scenario, like are you able to enter the you have to test each and every field actually in that case, right? Correct. Now the fourth one, tell me. Functional testing, I got it. And the next one, guys, tell me which one you have to do.
The system testing, like end to end, it's working or not after providing all the values for all the fields.
Okay, system testing you are asking. So, okay, let me add system testing also here. System system testing. Okay, fine. Mm-hmm. Like into end, right?
Yes, end to end.
Okay, fine. No other one. Tell me the other the types of the testing you have to apply here. If you are missing anyone.
Uh, the
Okay.
values get stored in the database or not once after we provide all the values and click on
No,
continue.
if you are doing the UI testing, yeah, you in some of the project they will also provide you the database access, and you have to also check the database. But here, I have only provided the UI application. So in that case, you have to download the ticket, or you have to check your email. That particular things get downloaded. That means it get also stored, right?
Yes.
Okay. Can I apply the scenario boundary cases?
Boundary value.
Right, boundary testing. Now other, can I apply here integration scenario?
For that we need
Testing.
to. For that we
Can
need
I
to.
apply the regression testing?
Regression testing, yes, if there is a bug comes and. But boundary testing, that is a technique, right? We use while testing both.
Yeah, but you are doing right. So
Yes,
suppose
while
in
doing
the
the functional testing, all we use that boundary
okay,
value
then
analysis, that technique we use, and we perform the functional testing.
it's fine. Now I have
Yeah,
moved here.
but integration testing,
Mhm.
How can
actually here we are not connecting with any other system. We are directly providing any value. It is not fetching from any third
No,
party.
no, no, no. Yeah, the integration is not only means that you are taking the data from the third party. If any two pages are interrelated,
But here two pages. Okay,
yeah,
next
let's
page,
suppose
continue
if
page. You
I
are telling.
if I
Okay, after
type
providing.
Vikas and Sir, if
Hmm.
I continue, it go to
Yes,
the
yes. Then
payment page,
integration testing comes between the
right?
pages. Yes.
So, as part of the positive scenario, you can do the smoke testing of high level. So whenever you get the requirement, even the requirement belongs to the uh, front end side, the UI side, or it's belong to the back end side. That is the the service side, web service side, in the REST API, right? So whenever you get the requirement, the very first thing, you can't directly start with the negative scenario. When you get the requirement, so tell me, you directly start testing with Vikas and some chunky value and .com without testing the positive scenario.
First positive scenarios, and
Right.
then
So
once the positive scenarios are passing, then we'll go for the negative
yeah.
scenario
So
testing.
first you are testing the smoke testing. In the smoke testing, you are ensuring that whatever the things has implemented, whatever the requirement is, it is working fine. Not in the deep level, not in the very detailed level. At least the flow, at least the purpose, what the purpose to implement this logic, at that thing you have to test in as part of this smoke testing. So guys, tell me why you are doing the positive testing in the beginning. Any reason behind that? Why not some other types of the testing?
If positive
It
is
is for
only failing,
priority. Actually, we prioritize our cases, right?
if positive is only failing, and for sure negative will also not work.
No, what
And
happened? What happened? The clients, the requirement is, guys, you can mute. So the requirement is, at least whatever the requirement is, you have to do the action successfully. Leave it the negative. Negative is the separate thing. At least we have to ensure that the purpose behind to implement this particular feature, it should work, right? So let's suppose you started with the negative testing or some other types of the testing, right? So let's suppose you started the negative testing. You spend a lot of time behind the negative testing. You started with the negative testing, you testing with the negative scenario, right? You spend 2-3 days behind the negative testing. 2-3 days behind the negative testing. You spend, yeah, in the regression testing, in the integration testing also. Okay. After 2-3 days, you start doing the positive scenario. Like positive scenario, this all the things comes under the positive. I think system testing is also comes under the positive. I think this is also kind of the positive testing. We are applying the positive, or integration is as well. Okay. So after 2-3 days, when you done your negative scenario and you start doing the and you done your functional testing and the boundary testing, whatever the testing you are doing, negative and the functional, right? And after 2-3 days, you start doing this smoke testing, right? You are testing the high level scenario, right? You found the bug. You found the bug. Now you are reporting that issue to your developer, right? Not developer, start fixing. So guys, tell me, when you start doing this testing, the positive testing, you can report that critical bug in the beginning or not? Or let's suppose when you start doing the positive testing, you found that when you are clicking on the continue, you are not able to continue, right? You are not able to continue, right? So if you report the positive scenario bug, then it should be fixed as soon as possible, and there is not any obstacle in your path, right? So negative scenario is not considered as a P1 or critical thing, right? It is something like P2 and the P3, right? So that's why we are doing the positive scenario first, after the negative scenario. The reason behind that, we can report the bug. If you are doing the positive testing, you can report the bug as soon as possible, so that developer can fix it. We can't make the delay in the positive scenario if it is P1 and the critical, right? But we can make the delay if it is negative scenario. Right or wrong? If
right.
you if you start doing with the negative scenario, the developer will busy in the negative scenario, right? So you have spent the time behind that, and then you start doing the positive scenario, your deadline is coming. Your sprint is coming, right? So you spend the behind the negative scenario, right? And the developer are also spending time behind that. And after a couple of that, you again start the positive scenario. When you start the positive scenario, you found the bug and then you are reporting. So developer is busy in the negative scenario. When he completes the negative scenario, then picks up the positive scenario, right? So it's all about the priorities and it's taking time. Actually, you have to you have to report the positive flow, positive scenario first. Okay, so as part of the positive scenario, what you are doing, right? You are writing the first name here and the last name here. You are selecting the mail. You are selecting the mail and select the country and the valid mobile number. You enter the valid email ID and you click on the I have a GST number, right? And then you click on the continue. Right, so this is one scenario. The next positive scenario you can enter, like you adding the one person, you adding the last name, right? And then you are selecting the female. At one time you can only select one gender, right? So in second scenario you are selecting the female, right? And select the country code, the mobile number, right? And the email ID, right? And at this side I will not select the checkbox I have a GST number. Okay, in the third scenario what you will do, when you're positive like that, you can apply the positive scenario, right? So the similarly it also cover it also cover the system testing. System testing means end-to-end testing, like when you enter your name here, when you enter your name and like that, and pass the mobile number and pass the email ID here. Let's suppose I am passing the email ID, right? And I will continue. I will continue. So invalid number. Okay. Okay. So I click on the continue. Okay, here you will get this page. Here you can see this is just like integration or not. Like you have entered the detail here and here you have to verify the data, right? And similarly you can edit the things, you can confirm the things, right? Whatever the scenario you can apply in the front end side, right? The same scenario you can also apply in the back end in the REST API. Okay, now you have to apply the negative scenario. As part of the negative scenario, what you will do, you can leave the first name and the middle name as a blank and click on the continue. Okay, so you will get the error message here. You not get any error message? Give me a second. What is enter name as mentioned in your, okay, they changed the message. Okay. Okay, let me add middle and do not pass the things here. Continue. I think previously, I think couple of days I have tested this. So they are showing first name is required, something like that. Now they change the message here. Can you see it here? If I am making this thing as a blank, you will get this message. Earlier it was, I think like that you will get the first name is required.
Yes, first name, middle name was required. I think
Yeah.
a few days back only when you were showing, it was showing us.
Yeah. I think the make my trip the change their requirement. Okay.
So only the functional testing can be done in the API testing, right? Only the functionality testing.
Yeah, the functionality testing which is related to the data. Like you can't test like this icon, right? This icon, and you can't test like this checkbox, radio button, this add new link, This thing you can't check it. You can only check the request, and in that request we have, even you can't check the first name is exist or not, middle name is exist or not, right? If it is mandatory, then it will give you the error message. If it is not, then you can continue. Okay,
Okay, if it is a manual
you can't
testing,
verifying the first name last name is displaying in the backend or not, because it is not the UI, it is the data related stuff testing you are doing here. Okay, let's suppose the color of gender is required in the red color, right? The login not display in the blue color, right? One by one added the UI you have to verify, right? So the UI related stuff, sorry, the designing related stuff and the graphical related stuff, you can't test it. You
but
can only
gender
test
is
it.
required, is that can be tested? Gender is
Yes,
required,
yes,
that
yes,
message?
yes,
Okay.
you can test it,
But
right?
see, if we are doing manual testing, we can cover all at a stretch and finish it. So if we are taking API only the functionality wise, that so if interviewer asks which you would you feel like better, doing API testing or manual testing in this case? So what should be the answer?
So you are asking that you are doing the manual testing in the front end.
Yes,
You are.
if we do the front end, we can cover
Mhm.
all the kind of like the UI, GUI level, everything. We can test it and validate whether the application is working as expected or not, even with the values providing positive, negative scenarios all. But in the API testing, it's only the functionality testing, like functional, the data testing. So if suppose the interviewer asks the question,
Mhm.
see, if you go like this way, it happens. So which you would feel the better way, like whether API testing? Why still we are going for the API testing and not the manual testing?
Okay, let me explain you. So both the testings are, yeah, it looks like similar, but having the difference, right? If here, if you are doing the API testing, right? So in a project we have the both the team have the separate, right? The front end team we have the separate team, and the back end team we have the separate team. Okay, and if you are doing the front end testing, if you are doing the front end testing, let's suppose you have to let's suppose you are doing the backend, right? And anything you are testing the scenario in the backend which is related to the data. Okay, so in the backend you have to simply check that request. Let's suppose we have this request, create the employee, right? So this particular request, that means it creating the employee, it's creating the employee, right? You have to pass the value, first name, key name, and all the required thing which you have to connect with the server to connect with the to create the employees, right? You have just click on the send, that's it. But if you are doing in the front end side, right, first you have to come to that particular page, and then you have to apply the scenario, right? So if you are adding like multiples mm, okay, first I have to complete. Yeah, I have added. And what happened, it's already selected one adult. I can only select one. Why it's saying you are already selected one adult. Remove before adding new one. Yeah, I have selected one. That's correct. And why? Okay, let me deselect both the things, and Give me a second. Yeah. So you have already selected one adult. Remove before adding new one. I can only select only one adult. Is that functionality? I don't think we can. I'm not able to add multiple. I don't know. I think this will be issue from the make my trip. Might be something we are doing wrong. Okay, leave it. So if you are doing the testing in the backend side, that is API side, let's suppose if this thing is not working here, if this thing is not working when you are trying to connect when we are trying to create the employees data, that is 110% sure that if you are doing the same action here in the front end side, right, so it will also not work here. You are not able to create the data here also in the front end side, right? In the front end side, it required the as compared to the back end, it required the more times and the more resource. Here in the backend, you can see it here. We just have to pass the keys and the values, Here you have to, you have to click on add new adult, and you have to, select all the things, right, and pass the value. And very first thing that you have to reach to this page. Okay, and when you are clicking on the continue, right, so if you confirm that thing, right, and then you can ensure that that you are able to still you are not able to ensure that you are able to create the data, because your data is not created, you have only saved the data. But here, if you pass anything and that particular request is for the create, so that means that you have successfully created your data. But in the UI, you have to perform 2-3 steps. After then, you can ensure that you have created your data. Okay, but in the backend, you can test that thing in using the single call. The first thing, let's discuss one by one. If you are using the UI, that is front end, right, first you have to reach to that page where you want to perform the application. Particular page, right? But in the UI, in the backend, in the RESTful API, you just have to send the request. You have to just send the request. Okay, and if you are doing in the front end, right, it will more time taken. But if you are doing the same thing in the RESTful API using any tool, then it is less time taken. Right? Why? Because to perform the action in the front end page. So guys, tell me, I'm trying to create the let me go back. So if I'm moving to the passenger where I have to add the passenger name and detail. So tell me how many steps I have did here, right? To first select the flights and the and select the date, and then I have click on the continue, and then second page displayed, and then I move to this page. Right, but in the back end, you just have to hit this call, and you can verify that particular things is also working in the front end also. Okay, and in the REST API, and the reason behind that, the REST API is also what happened. One company has implemented, suppose Amazon is one company. Okay, Amazon has implemented one API service. Let's suppose weather. Let's suppose the Amazon has implemented the weather service. Weather service means they can broadcast the weather, right? Area wise they can broadcast, right? Now now we have other companies like the small company. Let's suppose company 1, company 2, company 3, company 4. These all company, you know, they also want to use the weather service. These all company working on one similar project, that is weather service. They want, you know, whenever you want to, you are going here and typing here weather report. So you will get the weather report as a 20-degree temperature, and you know, the day wise you will get the detail, right? And the area, which area I am living here right now, and you get the humidity and the wind speed, right? So this company want to implement this feature, the weather feature, in his application. This all company want to implement this particular feature. Okay, so what this company will do, they will implement, they will you know, they will hire the resource, spend the money, right? And they start implementing the weather service, right? They start implementing the weather service. Okay, so they all has implemented the weather, right? Now to implement any particular service, it requires a lot of things, guys. Agree or not? If you are implementing anything, you know, lot of things, you know, the efforts, right? The physical efforts you have to put it there, the money you have to spend there, right? The R&D team you have to create, right? So you have to, you know, create the team. You have to, where you have to hire the, you know, different resource, development resource, testing resource, the product owner, all the things, manager, team lead, where you have to hire. Agree or not? Agree?
Yes.
Right? So what these companies will do, this company, right? So instead of developing this company, instead of developing this application, they will use the Amazon services. They will use the Amazon services, right? And how the Amazon service will provide, they will create one API, and they will charge for this API. If you want to use this API weather service, then you can use. They will charge for that. They will charge for that. Now, when this API the Amazon has implemented, right? The API weather service. Now, this company start using the API weather service. Company 1 also, company 2 also, company 3 also, company 4 also, company 5 also, right? So let's suppose they have provided this service. This is your service, and in this service there is one request. If you go here, you will also get the weather API. If I type whether API whether REST API example. Here you can see. Let me open this one. So you can see it here, guys. This is one company, AccuWeather. AccuWeather, right? So this company providing the API service, the weather API service. Here you can see. Here, I think this one. No, this one is the comment only. If you go here, API reference. Yeah, here you can see the location of the API, forecast of the API, current condition, indices, right? Weather alarm API, alert API, imaginary API, tropical API, right? These all are the API, right? If I click on that, here you can see the APIs, the list of the APIs, the list of the API. Here you can see, they have provided, this is the get method, and here you can see the service, what service they have. Data service AccuWeather.com, and location and the V1 and the resource. Here you have to add your country code. If you add your country code, you will get your country weather detail. If you add here you can see the country wise, the country, and here you have to add the region code, right? If you want to check all the cities list, so you have to use this one. So these all are the APIs, right? They are providing to this company. Now this company purchase this API. The purchase, they will pay the money for to use this particular API, right? So this company start using this API, right? So they can make the changes in the schema level. They can make the changes that will done by the developer. And let's suppose the company one not want to use the similar data which the API weather has implemented, right? So using the mapping concept, that developer will know. Actually, we using the mapping concept, we can override their key, and you can use, the company one can use their own data. So what happens here? The Amazon has implemented this service and providing this service to all the company who want to use these services, right? And these services start using by paying the money to the Amazon, right? So what happened for this company? The effort get decreases. Now they don't have to hire the team for that, right? Yeah, they are spending money, right? But they don't have the extra tension. We have to release, we have to bug fix, we have to create the team, gather the requirement and all the things, right? Just he purchased this API from this company, right? And they start using these services. So that's why we have the separate API team who is testing these services, who is testing this service, the things which I get it from the third party that is working fine or not, or the new things which you have implemented that is working or not. Let's suppose the company one want the new additional feature in the API weather service, so he can add that particular feature also. In my previous company, I was working one application, banking application. My project name was Yellowtail. Yellowtail is a European banking company. Yellowtail. Sorry, if I remove this thing, here you can see Yellowtail. No, Yellowtail bank. I think. Yellowtail in Europe. Okay, I'm not getting here, but earlier it was displaying here. So I work on the one company, that name was the Yellowtail. So what the company was doing, they have created they have research on the market. They have research on the market, and they have created one common service. They have created one common service which is frequently used by the different bank. Like ABN is one bank, European bank, right? Argenda is one European bank, right? And ABN and Duck is one bank. If you go here and type Duck Bank, it again showing the not showing the strange here. Argenda bank. Here you can see Argenda is one bank. Here you can see Argenda. Okay, so what the Yellowtail was doing, they were creating the one banking service, which you know how they are creating. They have research on the market. What are all the banks? Let's suppose we have SBI and the ICICI. Okay, right? These all banking sector using one common feature, right? So this Yellowtail company has, you know, the R&D team research on that, and they are start working and creating the one common service, right? That common service is used by all the bank. Let's suppose this the Yellowtail has implemented one service. That service name is API bank service. Okay, this is the name of the service. Okay, so he has implemented this, right? Now ABN want to use, so they have to purchase. The developer team has to map this thing in his project, ABN project. Now they can start using. So now they have the separate API team who is responsible to do the testing of their APIs, who's, you know, they have purchased from the Yellowtail, right? So what, you know, you can see this company don't have creating the on project. They are purchasing from the third party, and they start using them, right? So that is the reason we are doing the API testing generally. One company creating the services and selling their services to the different company, and different company start using that services. So in the beginning of the class, I told you one concept, that let's suppose I'm trying to book the ticket. Let me go to the make my trip. When I'm trying to book the ticket from Delhi to Mumbai, right, and clicking on the search, right, you can see how this make my trip get the different flight company detail here in make my trip page. Right? So they are using the make my trip using the different company web services, different companies web services. They are using Go First and the Indigo, Air India, right? So this Air India created one web service. This Air India company create one service. Let service name is API flight service. Okay, flight service. Not this Air India company selling this product, flight booking. If I go to the flight booking, here you can see we have one travel look, right? So travel look, make my trip, make my trip, make my trip, and clear trip, clear trip, clear trip, and go above. We have one more, go ibo, go ibo. Okay, go ibo, and we have, yeah, similarly we have multiple, right? So what did you think, how this traveling site get the data when they are searching the flight? So this company tie up with the different airline company, and this airline company, they are creating one services, and this services, this travel look, and the other traveling site, they are using these services, they are using these services. So let's suppose, guys, tell me, guys, I'm asking one thing, when you are purchasing anything from other, are you doing the testing or not? That thing you have purchased from someone that is working fine, are you testing or not?
Yes.
Right? So let's suppose the API flight service using the, I'm creating one request, I'm creating one request in the body, I'm passing post method and raw, and let me create one request, right? And here I'm using, let's suppose from field, and pass the value. Here I am using to field and pass the values, pass the values, pass the values. Okay, and here I am selecting date. Okay, and pass the values, right? Here I am selecting, let's suppose what I am selecting, from sorry, description, right? I'm selecting description, right? Right now here I'm selecting passenger, number of passenger, number of passenger. Okay, passenger. Okay, okay. So this airline company created one services. Inside the services we have multiple requests, like to create the data, to get the data, to update the data, all the operation we have inside this flight services. Okay, they have created one, let's suppose there is one request like that. Okay, and the make my trip purchasing their services, right? Now what the make my trip will do, this service map with the developer will map this thing with the front end, with the front end. Okay, so whenever the front end guys, you know, performing any action, they will call the backend, they will call the backend, and they will not directly call to the Air India, right? They will call to the make my trip. So the make my trip purchases the API flight service. Okay, so they will use, let's suppose the Air India using the URL as a https airindia.com, right? So when the make my trip purchase this service, so they will use their URL, they will try to implement all the things by own way, because he is paying the money for that. Okay, so when you are doing any action here in the front end, it's calling to the backend request, and that backend request connecting with the make my trip, right? And It's connecting with this service, and this service connect with the Air India and get the data. Get the data, right? So let's suppose the Air India has implemented from to date, right? But Make My Trip don't want to use this name, right? They want to change this name, something like source. They want to use source. Okay, so when the Make My Trip use this service, they having the the business deal that they can also change their value. It is not mandatory to use their key. If the third party, if the Travellook Make My Trip use their property or key, they can use. They have to change in the schema level, so that all the things is done by the developer. Okay, so the why we are doing the API testing, because that API we have purchased from the third party, and we are using that service, that third party service, as a on service, right? So that's why we are doing the API testing here. So tell me guys, tell me one thing. So you are doing, you can see it here, the trip type from to, this thing is designed by the Make My Trip, right? But the data which comes here, the date and time, so Make My Trip, this is the third party data, right or wrong? Right.
Yes, yes.
This is the third party data, right? So that's why we have the separate team for the API testing, right? Because we are using some other services, right? That's why we have to test that services. That's why the APIs and the API, the backend and the front end are related, but have the separate team, and both are, it's similar, but you can say it is different also. If you are trying to create the data, you have to go to that page and then you can create the data. But in the backend, you have to just call and you can test that thing. So it reduced the time here and the resource here. If anything is not working in the backend, that means it is not working in the front end also. Clear, madam?
Because
Yes, sir. Tell me.
I have one small doubt. This API they are purchasing from the different companies, right? Like platforms.
Yeah,
So
in my earlier company where I work, so they have they was implementing the API. I work on the previous company, so in that company they are creating the services, not they are not purchasing the services. So in that case, if you are creating any services, let's suppose the Air India, if we creating any services, then tell me, if you are creating any services and if you are selling their services, then tell me, you have to test or not that service.
we will test it definitely, because we
Yeah.
don't have any guarantee that whether it is working or not.
Yeah,
Testing.
whether it is working on, if without testing, if you sell this thing into the market, then you will lose the market, right?
Yeah.
Right. So if when the API team, when the Air India team creating the services, that not means they are creating their UI also, the front end also. They just creating these services. They just creating their services, not the UI. Not the UI. They just create the service, right? The UI is mapped by this company. When this company Travellook purchase this company, so this service, let's suppose the API flat service is mapped with the UI, mapped with Travellook project UI. Clear?
Yes, yes.
Yes, sir. Tell me now.
Yeah, that is only I supposed to ask. Actually, mapping you told, right? That mapping, like how they will do. Like for example, Amazon, their own services are there.
Yeah.
We have to use that particular services, like web service. I'm telling.
Mm-hmm.
Then we have to use that services in our company, and we have to integrate these APIs, or we can just like copy paste the code.
No, 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 sir, no, sir, no, sir, no, sir. Let's suppose the Amazon has created these services, the API weather services, right? Now, the another company like XYZ company want to use these services. So, what they will do? They will provide this service, right? They will provide this service and they will integrate that service in his project. Okay, and they can make their changes. If you want to make any changes in that particular service, let's suppose you want to use your data, your keys and the value, let's suppose these things are similar but you want to add couple of things also, then these things are, in the beginning these things are happening, okay, when you are taking these services. So what happened in the real time, sir, what happened, this let's suppose you are the Make My Trip want to purchase the Air India. So Make My Trip going to the Air India, right? They first provide the free service, and in our company we have the collaborator. We have the collaborator, like the we can also have on collaborator, and we can also hire the third party collaborator. Third party collaborator means they can taste this service, they can taste this service, the free service, right? That is at the first time, right? They will use this service, right? The collaborator use this service and use like 1 month or couple of days and a week and try to apply all the scenario. When the collaborator is satisfied, when collaborator is satisfied, the Make My Trip collaborator, okay, so this Make My Trip maybe hire the collaborator from the third party, or they having the on collaborator team. That team is verifying these services, whatever the product we are going to purchase, right? So it is as per our as per our requirements or not, right? So they will verify the collaborator. When the collaborator is happy, then he is asking to the Make My Trip, yes, you can purchase this thing. Okay, so the collaborator purchase, sorry, Make My Trip purchase their services, and let's suppose they want to integrate their things. When Air India provide their services to Make My Trip, okay, so now Make My Trip integrate their services by on way, like they want to change the URL, and that URL is connecting with Air India services. Let's suppose they have used HTTP and Make My Trip, Make My Trip.com, right? But when you calling to the Make My Trip, it calling to the Air India internally. Internally, they have integrated with the Air India services. Air India services. So this all the integration and the mappings is done by the developer, right? Right, sir?
Yeah. Yes, yes.
Similarly, all the things when we are purchasing anything, if you want to integrate the thing, because you have paid the money for that, you want to use that thing by on way, right? So you will use, why I should show the Air India? It is correct. Why Make My Trip will show the Air India URL, right? Because he paid the money for that, so he will use their URL, service URL, right or wrong? Agree? So always everyone show his market, not the third party, because he pay the money for that, right? So when you purchase this service, the developer has integrated this service with your project. They have mapped this service with your project. If you want to add anything, you can add. If you don't want anything, then you can remove. Okay, so that thing is done by internally mapping or integration, which is done by the developer. Okay, so that's why the API testing we are doing.
Vikash,
Okay, yeah,
can I ask something?
yeah.
Yeah, because actually the explanation, what it meant was very detailed, but I just have one question on that. Now, API testing majorly comes into role when two web application is integrating, right? For example, I'm saying make my trip, then yes, it is going here and taking the thing from Air India, whatever, right? So API testing is coming into role. But with this JPEG store and all, we have tested, right? There we just checking that that backend is working fine only, right? There is no role for two web application to interact and take the.
No, what happened? This actually Go REST has implemented their own services. What happened? I told you the two things. Let's suppose I don't want to purchase the Air India. So in that case, you can implement your simple. Let's suppose the Make My Trip, Clear Trip and the Travel Trip want to use the Air India services, right? But the GoAbo don't want to use their services. So in that case, you have to implement their services, not in the Air India, because we are getting the data from here. So in that case, you have to purchase the Air India services. But in some other example, let's suppose you have the one project, and in that project you are using on data. So in that case, you can create your own service and you can use that service in your project.
Yes, that will not be as an API testing, right? That is just to ensure whether that backend is working fine.
No, that is the API testing. They will create the separate service for that. Whatever the service we have, they will create the separate service for that also. Let's suppose we have one, you are asking about Jetpack Store. So,
yeah, my thing is, for example, I have shown one example now, right, in that notepad. Okay, whatever. So this JPEG store itself. So here we are just ensuring whether this backend is working fine, right? Whether if you click the fish.
So
that
means what? Backend means what? Backend means service.
Because, but when two web application is interacting, whether that communication happens good, only then
the developer, they're having the two things, the web and the backend, the web application and the web service. Okay, so if you talk about the web service, in the web service we have multiple web service like SOAP service, like REST service we have, right? So if I clicking on the fish, right, so this web application connecting with the web services, in that web services I'm using the REST API, right? And REST API, so they are connecting with they are using the REST API, then they go to this particular resource, and whatever the action I have did here, they can do that action. If that web service is connected with the database, then it also connecting with the database, because everything we are storing inside, we are not storing the thing inside the service, right? We are storing inside the database, right? But the web service is the medium.
Okay, so whenever the web service is accessing, okay, there comes an API role, right? So I was in mindset with only if two web application is in communication, only then this API plays a role. That's why I just wanted to clarify.
That's clear?
Yes, yes.
Okay, so where I was, yeah. So you can do the smoke testing. You can do the like smoke testing and the high level testing, right? And in the similarly, let's suppose you want to apply the negative scenario here. you want to apply the negative scenario. Yeah, here you want to apply the negative scenario, right? So what you are doing here, like you are not passing the mobile number or some greater than 10 digit, right? You are passing some alphanumeric, or the combination of character. You are putting the decimal, something like that. You are passing. Agree or not? Right? Right, same in the case of email. You are passing something like you are not passing the domain like @gmail.com. You are not writing dot, you are not using .com, right? Something like that you are using in the backend, in the front end side, right? Same thing we can also do it here. Same thing. Let's suppose this is your right? So let's suppose here, or we can use this one, create the user here. Okay, let's suppose this is the Go REST API services. Okay, and here you have passed the token. In the body you are passing the name. So guys, what happened in the backend? Everything, let's suppose the I'm clicking on the header. This first name is mapped with the name. Here you can see, you might have question, if you are using the first name and the middle name, why it is here name? So it is not a worry, because what happened when developer mapping this thing, mapping the API services, they have integrated this field with this value. So whatever value you will pass here, they will come inside the first name and the middle name. They integrated, they mapped the first name and the, because I have worked with the development team so closely, because sometime developer was not there and they are not able to understand. So that's why I explained the mapping concept to the developer all the with the client. So each component which you are using in the front end, they are mapped with the backend component, the backend property. Let's suppose the first name mapped with the name, email ID mapped with this email ID, right? The gender, it mapped with this field actually. Okay, doesn't matter what name you have used here. If developer has mapped first name and middle name with this particular key, then it will work. Right. Now what I am doing here, I passed the name as a Rahul test and let me call. So can you see it here? Yeah, data get created. Here you can see. When I pass the positive scenario, all the things I have positively passed here. Positively I have passed, like all the valid thing, name, email ID, gender, and the status, right? Now I have ensured that this thing is working and fine. Similarly, you can check the positive scenario with the female also, with the female, and with the active status, whatever the status, they will provide you like inactive, active, or normal, right? So whatever the status they have written in the requirement, you have to check with all the status. Okay, now and similarly, like the male you can pass, or female, or you have some transgender they have mentioned right in their requirement, then you have to also test with the transgender. We have to test each and everything which given in the requirement, and you have to connect with the server and check, and then as part of the integration testing, you have to call and check that particular data is get created or not by using ID or get by ID or using query parameter. Let's suppose, so 1 3 4 5 1 3 4 7, I will use here 1347 and call. You can see. So that means that the data which I have created is, successfully get created. How I can check? Using the integration testing, and that integration is get call. If you are not getting the data here, that means that data is not get created successfully. Okay, so when your positive scenario like that, you can apply the positive scenario, right? Now you are applying the negative scenario. As part of the negative scenario, what you are doing here, let's suppose I am testing mobile number. I remove the mobile number. So let's suppose first name, I remove the first name, and same thing I am also doing here, remove the first name and call. You can see you will get the error message 422 unprocessable entity, right? Generally in the real time you will not get this type of status code, right? This code is basically similar to the 400 bad request, unprocessable entity. The name itself saying unprocessable things are happening here. Okay, so in the real time, most of the companies, right, they are using 400 bad request. Okay, so when you are not passing here, you will get here can't be a blank, right? Similarly, if you pass the value, you can get you are able to create the data. Now similarly, what you are doing here, let's suppose you are passing integer here as a scenario, right? Same thing you can also do it here. Earlier it was string, now I am passing integer here. Let's try to see what happened. Email ID, because they have not set the validation for this particular service. Okay, so that's why we are not getting that message, right? But in the real time, in your requirement, if it is mention string, then it should only work with the string, not integer. Then you have to connect with the team, with your client. Then you have to ask this problem that I'm passing this thing, then it is a bug, right? So I'm going to log the bug, right? So let's suppose if you are passing here like numeric value, and let's try to continue. Let's see, it's showing me the error message, right? Similarly, when you pass the numeric value here and you will try to connect, you will get the error message. Okay, now the blank we have seen the let's suppose try to pass minimum one and try to create. Okay, so as part of the requirement, they will mention that minimum one character you can use to a minimum one character you can use, or maximum generally 25 character, or it depends on the requirement. And some of the project, they are not using the maximum limit. So what scenario you can apply it here as a boundary test cases? Guys, tell me. If you are doing the boundary test cases, what are the test cases you can apply it here?
125.
125 or 2, or we can take the between values
24,
also.
224, then 0 and 26.
Right, so like that you can check. So as a boundary cases, you can try with 1 and 25. After then, between value like 24, right, you can test, and then you will also try with a 0 value and then exceed the value, right? Exceed means more than 25, right? And you will try to create the data. If your requirement is saying that you can't create, then you will get the error message. Similarly, you can pass the one value here and try to create the user. Similarly, your requirement is asking to pass the, like that, the 25 character, then you can pass the 25 character. Okay, if it is not working with the 25, then you have to report. Let's suppose you pass the more than 25 character. Tell me, is this bug or what?
If it's getting created, then it is a bug.
It is a bug, right? So as per the requirement, you can see they have set the minimum and the maximum value, and you are trying more than that. So it is calculated as a bug. Okay, similarly, you can test the email ID also, like you can pass the valid one, right? And when you are trying to do trying to pass the same email ID, you can see the error message, right? Similarly, you can remove the .com, and let's try to see, are you getting any error message or not? If it is get created, then it is an bug, because you have not passed the valid email ID. That's why.
Because
If any,
how we do alignment of these request in the collection, under collection or folder? Can you just explain once after you are done with
yeah,
scripting?
that I will explain you when I design comes to the designing section of the collection. At that time, I will explain you. Okay. How you can
Okay,
create the
thank
collection, and how you can create the scenarios, and how you can create the positive scenario, how you can align the thing, how you can align the pre-request. Okay, so that I will explain you when I explain you the designing stuff. Okay, so similarly, if anything is mandatory, let's suppose this thing is mandatory, and if you are not passing, let's check you are getting the error message or not. Let's suppose I am not passing the name here, right? And let's call. You can see it here. The name is missing because I have not passed the name here. Okay, so it's similar or not, guys? Whatever the testing you are doing in the front end side, data related testing, can you do the same here or not? Agree?
Yes.
Right? Is same, right? So positive scenario you can apply as part of the system testing for end-to-end testing. So guys, tell me how you can do the end-to-end testing. We can create the employee, right? We can get the
Get the
employee, and we can
update.
delete the employee, again get the employee to verify, update the employee, like that. That is the end-to-end testing, system testing, right? Right? Now negative scenario, we have seen whatever the, as per the everything is the requirement, based on your requirement you can apply the negative scenario. You can apply your negative scenario.
But we cannot check validation message. We can only
Validation message means, sir?
like please enter first name and valid ID proof. This all.
Yeah, you will get also. Let's suppose if you are let's suppose here in this request, here you can see I have not passed the the email ID is already exist. Okay, let me again create. Email ID is already exist. You can see email ID is already taken. So this message, it depends on the your developer, your requirement. If they have used, generally if you are passing anything, let's suppose if you are passing like if you are not passing the name, then you will get the error message as a first name is missing, if it is not an optional.
So because here they give the same message, whatever we will be getting in UI, or the
No, no,
message
no,
may
no, no,
vary.
no. That thing is mapped actually. Same.
Same,
Like
right?
here you can
Because
see
then only
gender
we
is
can.
required. Gender is required, right? So what happened? Gender is kept, but you will not get the same thing here. You will also get, you will also not get.
But
Both
how
the things I am
will
asking.
suppose now like email has already been taken. This message is coming from the API testing. Okay, when we test for that one. Suppose in UI it is like email is a required field or email is missing. So
Mhm.
I will validate from my end, like in API it is coming correctly, pass. But in
Mhm.
UI might be there is a spelling mistake in the missing. So if
Mhm.
that case happens, then how?
Okay, so very first thing, this message is depends on the requirement, right? This is decided by your client, which message you want to print it here. If anything, you are passing something invalid or valid, right? And so this thing, when the front end team are start implementing, they are mapping this thing with this thing actually. If you're passing something invalid, so they will map your message. Let's suppose they don't want to pass this message in the UI, right? They want to pass their custom message, right? So they have to map that thing in the UI,
Okay.
right? Let's suppose I'm not passing the email ID here. Let me pass the value and the mail I have selected, and I pass the phone number 789. Okay, and continue. What is this internet? Okay, is there issue from the make my trip site? I don't know. If it is issue from make my trip, then it is a blocked issue. They can't continue, or I am doing something mistake. I don't know. I thought we are doing correctly. So if let's suppose if user has not passed the email ID, you will get the error message as a email is required. But in the backend, you will get some other message. So it depends on the client. The client want to use the same message which you are going, which you are getting in the API. They want to map the same thing in the front end. Then you will get the same message in the front end also. If the client want their custom message, right, then using the mapping concept, using the integration concept, they will print their custom message in the UI. Okay, so when you are working in the backend side, you don't have to worry it is working fine in the front end side or not.
Okay, only we
It's
should be worried about as
you
per
are
the
only,
requirement,
yeah,
whatever is
you
coming
have
or
to
not.
only, you have to only worry about your APIs, only the backend, the web service. You don't have to worry about the front end. Is this front end working or not? Is this you are getting the same message in the front end or not? Why I have mapped both the things so that you can get the clear idea. That's why I map the things, both the things. But both are different project and different person will do in the real time. So you don't have to worry the message, the same message you will, when you call the this particular API and you are getting this message, you are not going to the front end and you are verifying this thing same here. You are not going this, you are not going to do this thing in the real time. Actually, you are only responsible for the backend testing. The motto behind that, why I have explained you the front end and the back end parallelly, so that you can get the clear idea how the things are mappings are happening actually. Okay, that's why I have correlated both the things. Okay,
Because
if you
anyway,
are,
this key value
if you
will
are
be
doing the
given,
front
right?
end testing, give me ma'am, if you are doing the front end testing, so you don't have to worry what we are getting the error message in the back end. Yeah, you are only responsible to do the testing in the front end, not the back end. Okay, yeah ma'am, tell me.
No, I was just to ask when we are doing this backend testing anyway in our requirement, they will itself give the corresponding key values, right? That is how we have seen our requirements.
What key value? This key value?
Yes, that name, email, that.
Ma'am, in the mapping sheet, what we have learned?
No, in
In
some
the
of the thing in the request body, we have seen, right, this respective, I'm saying this spellings all, this name, email, that all they have given,
Yeah,
right?
the same thing. What happened when the requirements comes. So when the requirements comes, we all are working on the agile methodology, right? Parallelly, everyone working, doing their job. So requirements goes to the developer. Now developer going through the requirement, they start implementing the things. Now
And
what the tester will do in the same time, they start mapping this thing, they start creating the collection and the request, and they start mapping this thing in his tool, right? When the development team has completed his development, then he is moving the story in the testing, right? So I am assuming that developer has followed the same requirement, because we have the common requirement, right or wrong? Right,
yes,
we have followed the same thing, developer also followed the same thing, I am also following the same thing. So I am assuming that, let's suppose in the requirement name is mentioned, then developer has also used name in his JSON schema, right? So I have to test with the name. If it is not working with the name, then we have to report the bug. Clearly clear?
yes, yes, okay.
Everything you will get from the, if let's suppose in the requirement they mention like that, you don't have to worry. You have to just create the key and the pass the value and test, because this is part of your requirement. If you have confusion, then discuss with the client that I don't understand with this key, can you explain me? Then they will explain you then. Okay, even if you are adding anything, any external property, and you are able to create the data, let's suppose as per the requirement we have only 4 property we can pass in the request, and let's suppose you are passing any additional property, let's suppose span, right? And you pass the values here, right? And you are able to create the data. So in that case, you have to even discuss with the client that you have passed the additional things here, and you are able to create the data, right? So I think we do not test with multiple, like try to pass 1 or 2 and test, right? So you have to discuss with your client actually. And even if you are remove the name, something like that, but in the requirement it mentions gender and you are passing gent, right? So it will show you the error message as a JSON schema message, because this schema is not defined by the developer in his resource, in his mapping sheet, right? So you will get the error message as a JSON schema error message 400 bad request,
Okay.
because the developer has not mapped this gender in his schema.
Because your voice got muted in between, I think.
Now it's clear? It's clear, sir? Hello.
I think your voice got muted in between while explaining.
So where you was? What the last point we have heard? Okay, let me again explain you.
No, we are
Okay.
able to hear it clearly. I think there was no voice break.
Okay, no
Yes, sir, it
problem.
was clear.
Okay, let me again explain you. Let's suppose you have the 4 requirement in your mapping sheet, right? So what you are doing, let's suppose you are trying the scenario like gender developer has mapped the gender in his JSON schema. JSON schema. So JSON schema in the backend, they have mapped the JSON schema, right? Now, what happened when the developer get the requirement, they are adding all the keys in their JSON schema, in their JSON schema in the backend actually, right? So when we are passing any value, so it's mapping with their JSON schema. If in the JSON schema they have used the gender, then it will get mapped. If you let's suppose you are passing something like that, so it will in the JSON schema you use the gender and you are passing gent here, so it will not get mapped. So it will show you the error message, JSON schema is not defined, and you will get the error message as a 400 bad request. Okay, so I would recommend when you are doing the testing, just apply 1 or 2 scenario. Like you can use any invalid, like something like I'm adding one new property as a pen and try to test. Okay, you will get the JSON schema. If in your project they have used this concept, if they have not used this concept, then you are able to create the data successfully. Then you have to connect with the client, right? So let's suppose you are passing pen and you are getting the JSON schema. Do not try to add multiple property and add. Do not waste the time behind that. Just test with 1 or 2, or test with instead of email you can pass something like email R. So it will give you the JSON schema error. Do not remove change every name and test. This is not the ideal one. Okay, so you can, because what happened, let's suppose why I'm asking, if you have 5 minutes, let me explain you what happened. These all the things are mapped in the UI side, mapped with the UI side. Let's suppose first name is mapped with the name, email ID is mapped with the email ID, gender is mapped with the gender, right? So everything is mapped here, right? If you are passing any additional property here, let's suppose map pan ID, right? If I'm passing anything, if developer has this is not part of your requirement, so developer has not added this thing in the JSON schema, this thing is not mapped, so in the UI also it not get mapped, because this mapping is not happen for this particular field. So you might be able to create the data, but it is not an serious issue. And if developer has set the validation, then you will get the error message either JSON schema is not defined for the pen. Okay, clear guys?
Yes.
So okay, so tomorrow I will try to discuss the PM object and the environment. So I thought today, but before proceeding to the environment, I thought let's explain the scenario, how you can apply the scenario.
Because can we have 8 to 9:30 class?
8 to 9:30. If everyone agree, then anyone
Yes,
having
because it's
8 to
becoming
9?
late.
8 to 9 is okay, guys, or you having the issue?
8 to it can go up to like 9:30 also. It's fine if we start at 8.
Yes, Vikash, it is fine because now it is beginning late. 8 to 9:30 would be fine. I'm in.
Everyone agree? Please let me know, guys. If
Yes, starting 8 will be good to me as well.
8 to 9.
Yeah.
Yeah, because
Everyone agree, then I will start 8 to 9:30 or 9. Everyone agree?
Yes, please, because every day it's becoming late, 10 o'clock.
Okay, fine. So from tomorrow, okay, Srinidhi, you have the issue. Okay, ma'am. I think we can start from 8:15 is fine. 8:15, I will try to complete at 9:30 from tomorrow. Okay, but you will start at sharply at 8:15. Okay, because
Okay.
if you are joining at 8:30, then it's again get late. So you can join at 8:15 sharply, so that we can start at 8:15 and finish 9:30 or 9:35 or 40. Okay, fine.
Okay.
Okay, 8:15. Thank you, guys. Uh, in tomorrow class, we will discuss the environment. Okay, thank you.
Vikas, one question.
Yeah, tell me, sir.
Yeah,
The,
like you were saying that like Make My Trip uses Air India API. So like what developer can do in case of modification of this Make My Trip API? Like what I understood it that they can only do GET requests from Air India API, but
Mhm.
rest all what functions they can do for modification.
So when you are trying to book the ticket, right? So when you are trying to book the ticket, so tell me, it's book the ticket on the Air India side or in your Make My Trip?
Make My Trip account.
But you are booking the ticket for the Air India, na?
Yeah.
So it's called to the Air India using the post method.
Okay, okay. Means okay. We create an.
If you book the ticket, yeah, Make My Trip is the medium, sir. It is just like a medium to book the ticket on the Air India. It is just like a traveling site. It is the broker. It is the mediator, can I say, to book
Yeah.
the ticket on the Air India. So when you come to the create page where you have to enter the detail and email ID, first name, last name, and you continue do the payment. So it will create the ticket on the Air India actually. If you create the ticket on the Make My Trip, then Air India will say this person has not the booked the ticket on my flight.
Okay. But like you were saying that Make My Trip, if they inherit this Air India API, they can also do some modification like in key
Yes,
and
they
value
can
pair.
also do, but this is all part of the business deal actually, business deal. So what happened? Let's suppose you want to add any additional thing, right? So you have to connect with the third party. Third party means the service provider, and who is service provider? The Air India is the service provider who is providing the service. So you have to ask Air India that. You need to add some additional things, right? So you can add in that service so that I can use. Okay, or what they will use, they will use some custom keys and the values, so that the third party can add their values, key and values.
Okay. Means by permission of Air India only developer of Make My Trip can do change that.
Exactly, yeah.
And by mapping you means like in particular JSON key value pairs or like CRUD operation like post, update, delete, like you were telling
Mapping
about.
means what happened in the when the developer start working, they are mapping their services with the backend services, and each key is mapped in the JSON schema. In the backend, they will create one JSON schema actually, and they will define all the JSON schema there as a data type. Okay, so in the if I go here, let me show you if I sorry get it something here. Yeah, here you can see if I open one tutorial.
So this
Here you
developer
can
give.
see. Here you can see the JSON schema is a specification of for JSON based format for defining the structure. for defining the structure. Okay, so what happened like that, this is your JSON schema looks like, the which developer will use. Okay, they will create one JSON schema, they will add the property, and let's suppose if you are using the description here, right, so they will define the types in the, you can integer, you can use the integer if you are using description, and here you can say it is a string. They will define the things actually. Okay, if I show you the different example, let me open. Here you can see the JSON schema, it looks like that. Okay, here the developer has implemented the JSON schema, right? So they are use the property here, whatever the property they as per the requirement, they will add here, they will add here, and the data type like that. Where
So this is
like
done
that.
in like
They
server
will add the type also. So when you are sending the request, so this request connect with the JSON schema mapping. If developer has used this mapping, then you will able to continue. If they have not used, then you will get the error message, because it that particular keys is not defined into your JSON schema, and JSON schema is used for the to structure the for the structure of the JSON data, to define the structure of the JSON data. Okay, yes sir, tell me.
So this is all done in server side programming, no? This making
Server
JSON.
side, in the backend side, we don't have to worry about this thing is happening in, we have to do, even developer, all the things is done by the developer, we are not doing. I know this concept because I have closely worked with the developer. So that's why I know this concept, like how they are mapping the things. The client will provide the mapping sheet and they will map the requirement, and developer has create one JSON schema in his backend, and they will define all the property which you have added here, right? And they will also define the types, if it is string or boolean, they will define all the things. So based on that, they will add the validation. Okay, let's suppose you are passing here integer here, right? So it will go and check into the JSON schema, it will go here and check the name is there. For the name, it is type as a string, but you are passing as a number, so it will return the error message.
Okay.
Okay, so this thing you can't see actually. This thing is done by the developer. You have to only worry about the scenario. If I'm applying this scenario, what error I will get. Okay, or it is working fine or wrong. Now developer, now when you report this issue, let's suppose you have passed 343 here, right? 343, and you are able to create the data, right? Now you reported this bug to the developer, right? Hey developer, I'm passing name as a numeric value here, and I'm able to create the data. So now it's developer duty to find the root cause behind that. So developer, what the developer will do, developer go and check his data, right? He will go to the JSON schema and check the data type of this particular property. He will go to inside this particular resource, and inside this resource they will go and check the JSON schema and for the name. So they will check that there is name, yeah, I have used, but the by mistakenly developer has added the integer here. That's why you are able to create the data. So developer, what developer will do, they will fix the change here.
Okay.
So you don't worry about this JSON schema and how the mappings are happening, how the integrations are happening in the backend side. You only concentrate on the testing side. Okay, this thing in the real time, you don't have to do such type of the thing.
Yes, Vikas.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, guys. Have a nice day. Bye bye. And tomorrow I will start at 8:15 sharply. Thank you.
Okay, okay, thank you.